and welcome to yet another special episode of Zapped to the Past. I'm Adrian Mills, joined as always by Mr. Graham Braddings. If you haven't listened before, it's a podcast where we discuss games that were released for the Commodore 64, where we are using the magazine Zap 64 as a monthly guide for the games to focus on. We are in no way affiliated with Zap 64 itself. Back in the mist of time, we did not cover some of the games in those earlier issues of Zap. So in this episode, we finally cover the last two games from back then that we missed when we started this podcast. But because there are only two games left, we also picked a couple of games from around the time to also take a look at that were not reviewed in Zap. A little Brucey bonus for all our listeners. I'm sure you'll agree. You like a Brucey bonus, don't you, Graham?
Yeah, now and again, I do like a Brucey bonus, yeah. Well, I don't know what the one is nowadays because he's dead, but...
Well, the bonus would be if he came back. The monkey's paw. The Brucey paw. Ugh.
Yeah, it's better than a Brucey boner, which is
well, that's
possibly...
That's
all he is, yeah. That's all he ever was, maybe to some people, but best keep that to ourselves, I think.
Let's keep that litigious talk allegedly to ourselves.
Exactly, yeah, it's allegedly. But he was always Bruce, he was into a Brucey bonus, wasn't he? He was well into that.
He was, yes. And so that's what we've got. That's what we've got for this. So the first couple of games this week are the last two games that we missed back in the day from Zap. The final two games this week are just a couple of the ones that Zap might have reviewed, could have reviewed, probably should have reviewed.
Should have, would have, could have, yeah. Why didn't you? What are you doing? That kind of thing.
I don't know, but they didn't, so we are. But we hope you like those, and we quite enjoyed playing them, I think. There are some interesting couple of games. Yeah. So we're not going to chat much here. It is a sort of off week. We are in the middle
between
of things.
Seasons, yeah.
We are between seasons, yeah. And you can sign up to the Patreon. I'm just going to put it here. Sign up to the Patreon, patreon.com/Zap to the Past. If you want to get involved in episode 200, which is coming up in a couple of weeks' time, there's still time. There's still time if you're listening to this right now.
It's still good.
It's still good. So on that note, enough of us. Let's get on to the first of our four games for this week. All right. So our next game, we go. Obviously, we're back in the past. Graham, tell us all about Herbert's Dummy Run.
Okay. This was $9.95 at the time, which was full price, wasn't it? Full whack.
Ooh, that's a pricey one.
This was published by Microgen. We've seen quite a few of them back in that day. And this was the musician for this was Nick Jones. I don't know if it's the same Nick Jones that we spoke about in other things. Maybe it was. I don't know. So this got 59% in the hallowed pages of Zap, though, at the time, which isn't a great review, is it?
It's not good.
The instructions for this, I'll just read them out because they're very short. It says, Herbert was visiting, and I'll talk about the legacy of where this fits into the Microgen franchise of games in a moment. But the instructions for this, Herbert was visiting a large department store with his mum and dad, Wally and Wilma. That's Wally from Everyone's Wally, for those that don't know that. When he got lost. Now, the store is a scary place and full of beasts which will hurt Herbert and make him cry. Help Herbert to explore the store, manipulating the objects he finds to help him get into the lost children's office where Wally and Wilma are waiting for him. Objects are picked up by walking into them, but you can only carry 2 objects at any one time. Some rooms in the game are presented in the form of an arcade sub-game. These aren't just for fun, you have to complete them to finish the game. Okay, there you go. Short and sweet, isn't it? So Herbert's Dummy Run is the 4th game out of the 5 in the Wally Week series. That's Automania, Pyjamarama, Everyone's a Wally, and 3 Weeks in Paradise being the others. And sees baby Herbert lost to in a department store trying to find his parents, Wally and Wilma. As in the previous games, Herbert's Dummy Run is an arcade adventure where you must pick up objects and place them in the right locations. Yes, it's a walk and seek. You are only able to carry 2 objects at any time, like I said, and some objects are needed to be found in order to help complete the various arcade sequences, which I'll describe a couple of. Nasties need to be avoided as well, and if touched, part of your tear gauge is filled. If your tear gauge is filled, then one of your 3 lives are lost. You lose all 3 lives, and it's game over, man. Game over. Okay, pretty straightforward stuff for these older games, aren't there?
Yeah.
Now, this was a big deal over in Spectrum Land. This got a crash smash. Now, there's something we don't often say, do we? But that was that was their rewarding scheme, wasn't it? There was a Crash Smash. Was that the top level of theirs in Crash, I think?
I think so. I'm not sure if they had 2 levels. I think Crash Smash was it.
Did they have Crash Smash and a Crash Wobbler? I don't know. Anyway, so it was obviously quite highly rated on the Spectrum. So in the same vein as all the other games in the series, this is a good old-fashioned walk and seek adventure. Straight shooting, pound-for-pound Spectrum conversion sees you controlling Herbert around a series of flick screens, each one with weird objects to avoid, items to pick up and move around, and puzzles based around that logic to kind of solve, I guess. How do you open the jack-in-the-box? What is the chocolate coin for? How do I repair the torch? Can I climb up that rope? That's the kind of things you'll be finding yourself asking. The screens are, in keeping with the game, usually a door at either end. You walk through and or look through, climbing around other objects, climbing on platforms should there be any. The graphics are straight from the Spectrum, though classically more pastel and anemic in colour on the C64. They don't have that brightness, do they, of the C64? But then again, we don't have the colour clash either. It's all high res, as you'd expect. The game window is split between the UI at the top, detailing your number of lives, energy, time, tiers, time, and the objects you are carrying, which can only number in 2. To collect objects, you walk over them, like I said, and that will actually replace the objects in your inventory, so you can't actually put things down. So you are locked to replacing object for object and then remembering where you left things, which is a kind of game mechanic in all of these games.
Yeah.
Most rooms have enemies bouncing around, which you need to avoid, or they will quickly drain your life away or make you cry, whichever it is. And you control Herbert with the joystick with the fire button for jump. Pretty straightforward controls, really. You need to do that to use the doors, though, to jump up and change the handles because you're only an ickle. And there's lift on one of the floors where you need to jump up and select the sort of number of the floor you want to go to and then go to the doors. All pretty straightforward walk and seek kind of stuff. And so you walk the walk with the Spectrum-style visuals and sounds because it's got the kind of sound, kind of walking sound that you expect from a Spectrum game as well. Feels very Spectrum-y.
Yep, very Spectrum-y.
And you'll either like this for what it is, and maybe you've liked the other games in the series, or maybe you like Spectrum games on the C64. Or you won't like it. For me, though I do like some of these games on the Spectrum, or I did like some of these games on the Spectrum back in the day, I never loved them. I never grew to love them. And for me, this series never really did much for me after Pyjamarama, which is the only Spectrum game of that time that I quite liked in its own little way. Mm-hmm. The visuals in this aren't actually that bad for what they are. They're kind of high-res renderings of images, and they look like what they're meant to be in that kind of Spectrum-y way. It's not terrible. They look like what they are, but they are, they're not medium res. There's not a lot of depth to the colour in them, of course. But they are okay. And they look like what they're supposed to. And I don't think the theme for this one is as interesting as some of the other games, though, nor is the main character. I think the other games are more interesting in terms of the adventure. Pyjamarama, you're locked inside a nightmare, aren't you? And you've got to try and wake him up out of his nightmare. And that's quite an interesting thing. So you can be in a dream world of what such as it is. And there's a lot of mileage in that.
And then that makes sense of the craziness that's going on around you as well. It kind of legitimizes
completely.
All the strange objects and stuff.
So in this one, by taking it into the kind of real world, you lose the kind of the sense of the bizarre. So the objects that are in the world moving around don't make a lot of sense in the kind of way they move, which kind of defeats the kind of game logic. And that's kind of a setback for this. So if you like the idea of doing more of the stuff you've done in all the other games, then you're going to like this because it's just more of that logic. There's no more, no less. I don't think the character's likable or anything else. I don't think it doesn't really look like a baby or a child, I guess. It might be more. I'm not so sure really why it's Herbert's dummy run. Is he meant to be a baby with a dummy? Doesn't look like one. I don't know. Maybe he's a toddler. I don't know. But either way, I think the problem here is the thematic it's very of those games, and maybe you like them, and it looks like a Spectrum game on the C64. If all of those things are things you can put to one side, and you think, okay, I'll give this a go over. I think it was some like 50 or 60 screens. I don't remember reading anyway how many it was, but there's quite a lot of screens and levels to it. They are varied in the way they're designed to some extent, but the logic of the game isn't. You pick up an object, you go 3 screens to the left, you put it down, you pick up the other object, go to this room, there's the batteries. Oh, I left the torch back 6 rooms and 6 lifts to go. Go back, change that object for that, go all the way back, avoiding the objects to pick up the battery. The torch now works. Then you can go into that room that was, and it's that kind of game. It's like that. That's how exactly it plays. And you'll either map this as you go, make a note of the things you pick up and work the logic out and eventually work your way through it like you've probably done with all the others, or you ain't gonna. It's not a terrible game, though. I'll give it that. It is in keeping with the series. It's just not a very good one in the series. It's not doing anything particularly offensive. If you like walk and seek games of this type, you're probably going to like it, but you're not going to like it as much as the others in this series. It's not going to be your favourite. And that's all I really had to say about it. I didn't object to it, but I still prefer Pyjamarama if I'm going to play one of these. So what about you? Yeah,
fair enough. I mean, I was never a big fan of these anyway, so it's a real throwback this, isn't it? Another in the line of the Wally games that just didn't do anything for me back then, do even less now. They were never my thing. This, we've said it before, walk 20 screens to pick up the fish, to walk 20 screens back and drop the fish off.
Yeah, exactly that.
And it's a Spectrum game. And weirdly, when I was looking for this and looking on Moby, I noticed that the Amstrad version. Now you'd think that the Amstrad version is the one that would follow the Spectrum because obviously it's Z80 in it, so it's a thing. But they've completely redrawn all the visuals. It's really nice and colourful,
isn't it?
Yeah, it's like proper sprites and stuff. What I would have expected the C64 version to look like.
Strange.
Big bit more chunky and stuff like that. But the C64 version follows the Spectrum, which I think is a mistake. You should have leaned into the C64-ness of it and made this into a more interesting visual
experience.
Experience, because otherwise you just feel like you're playing a Spectrum game. And I didn't want that. I still don't want that. So it doesn't really take any real advantage of the C64. It's just another load of rooms with puzzles to solve, loads of backtracking, going up and down lifts, and I just can't stand these games, really. They bore me to tears. I'm sorry. I know, looking back at them now, I just get the same old annoyance at the design of them. It just comes back to me. It's like just wandering about, finding stuff. And and like you said, I think that the second game, Pajama Armor, was obviously the standout. And I know a lot of people really like that because it was they kind of nailed the formula of it. I don't know what Automania was like. Was that similar to these as well? Was that same sort of thing?
Yeah, similar. But Automania was also quite a good one of them. I think, again, the setting was better. Yeah,
and I think Pajama Armor is the one that people say is the one that nailed the feel. Yeah. And every once in a while, as much as we didn't particularly like it, was interesting in that you had multiple characters doing multiple different things, so it brought a sense of that to the game. Whereas this kind of leans into, for some reason, the baby and stuck in a department store. So it's like, who cares?
It's not a very good idea.
I can only think that they'd seen Home Alone 2.
Yeah, maybe.
Where there's a bit where you're stuck with a bit he's lost and you're kind of wandering about. There's a bit in the department store right there. It just doesn't do anything for me, this. I don't like... There's a thing about these old games, just those sort of, random weird... And we have Manic Miner to thank for this, and probably Miner 2049 and things like that. Just random weird enemies, just floating around the screen, being British and madcap. It's like we'll just have forks bouncing about, and then we'll have some hams, and then we'll have cheese, and you'll just be
very Monty Mole.
It's just I don't care. It just does nothing for me. So no, I don't like these games. I went back to this. I tried to play it, gave it a chance. It's just a weird. The jumping doesn't seem like you can jump far enough. It's got that jumping where you kind of jump, and then if you're in the air, you're going to go straight down. Yeah. So you don't carry on the inertia. It's all just very animated, very much of its time. It just doesn't do anything for me. So I never did like these games. But if you do like them,
And how far behind are we with Monty on the Run? The C64, which has got the really good music and it's a whole lot better.
This was Herbert's Dummy Run was that was issue 4. I think Monty on the Run was the following issue, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's what I mean. The game. If you're going to play a game on the C64, you're going to play Monty on the Run, aren't you?
Yeah, Monty on the Run was issue 6. That was issue 4.
So a couple of months later, Monty on the Run.
Yeah, exactly. And although that again has its Spectrum roots with its visuals and stuff, feels fresher and faster and better.
Yeah, and it's got that amazing Hubbard music in it.
Yeah, whereas this just feels... Nick Jones, by the way, is the same Nick Jones. It's his first game listed on Lemon. It's the same guy.
Okay. Wow.
He went on to do Smash TV and Supremacy and Exelon and Cybernoid and everything like that.
But he's listed as the musician here, though, which is odd.
Yeah, I think his first game after this, Nick Jones, his first game after this, let's just have a look, was Equinox, Battle of the Planets, Exelon, Frostbite, Beyond the Ice Palace, Cybernoid 2.
Yeah, so he learned to code on the C64 good and proper then.
Yeah. He's got such a good resume, that guy, on the C64. Solid game. Solid.
You got to start somewhere, haven't you?
Yeah. But there you go, that was him. But no, not a fan of Herbert's Dummy Run. Not for me,
no.
I'm afraid. Never was. From July 1985 comes the final game of the one that we skipped over when we first started the podcast. This is Jonah Barrington's Squash.
Aye.
Full disclosure time. I used to play loads of this back in the day.
What, this game or squash in general?
This game, both. I used to really like this game. Because I was actually a fairly decent squash player back then. I was all right at school level. Played for the school and stuff. And I loved this game as well. I used to enjoy this as well. So, I used to like my squash. Has it stood the test of time? Well, let's see. I couldn't find any credits for the C64 version. But interestingly, the Spectrum original was created by one Malcolm Evans.
Okay.
Who's that, you ask? You may well know. Well, he did 3D Monster Maze on the ZX81. A game which terrified me back then. I do remember being terrified. That bloody clown at the start, and then being chased by Rex. You can hear Rex. Rex has seen you. It was quite frightening back then. I don't know if he did the C64 port of this, but I couldn't find out who did. So anyway, it was published by New Generation Software, which is Malcolm Evans' company, and it cost £7.95, which is a good price for this kind of thing.
It is.
As the game loads, you get a very odd loading screen. It looks like it's crashed.
Just a bit. I thought it had.
Because we have what I presume is Jonah Barrington and another player in front of a crowd that is made up of the word squash.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
It's a very odd one. It's very odd. It's not very pleasing to the eye. No. I will say, though, that Jonah Barrington's leg is really well defined. It's really well drawn. The leg part is ace. It's It's really good.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, it's like, it's a bit of an assault on the senses.
Yeah.
Anyway, game loaded. We've got a very bare bones layout here, just straight in. Basically, what you see is what you get for this game.
True.
On the left of the screen is the court. We see it from directly behind and above, and that's always there. The screen never changes. On the right is the UI. And the first thing it is asking you is, do you want to play the best of 1, 3, or 5 sets? Okay. So it's a big chunk. So it's basically the screen is split in two. It's court on the left, UI on the right. Press the appropriate number. You don't get any sort of indication that you've actually pressed the number. You just press the number, I think. Or does it say 3? It might say 3, actually. Press the appropriate number, press enter. Then we get to select the colour of the ball in one of the weirdest ways I've ever seen selecting the colour of the ball.
True.
So you get red through to yellow. So red is the easiest, yellow is the fastest and the hardest one. Okay, that's fair enough. It says, so you got red. To do this, though, you hit the relevant colour key on the C64 keyboard. So the colours on the C64 keyboard were on the numbers 1 to 8, weren't they? 1 to 9. 1 to 9? 1 to 3, 4. No, it's 8. 1 to 8.
Yeah.
So black was on 1. White is number 2. So you press 2 if you want a white ball, 3 if you want a red ball, 7 if you want a blue ball, and 8 if you want the yellow ball. I can see what they were doing, but it took me ages to figure that out.
Yeah.
With a modern keyboard. I was like, what's it say? It said hit the colour key. I was like, and it took me a while to go, is it asking me? All right, okay. At the time, you probably go, it's the colours. But even then, why not just move up or down or press 1, 2, 3, or 4? It's a very odd way.
Strange. Once
you've selected the colour of your ball, you press enter. And then you can then choose whether player 1 and 2 are human or CPU control. And then you can name them as well. You just get one line. So I was basically AD versus Barrington. There you go. I couldn't bother to change the second one. And then once you've done that, you're into the game. Okay, players. So you've got the squash court. It's like I said, it's seen from above and behind, straight on. It's not it is 3D, but you're not seeing it from the side.
Elevated, yeah.
It's elevated. It's not like that sort of isometric one we saw recently, your Henga Khan's one.
No,
it's slightly different. So it's just straight,
elevated from the back of a
behind.
cube, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. Players appear in the service area of the court, which is at the back, and you've got the little squares. Everything's there. All the lines are there. Everything's there. Everything looks like a squash court. And if you're playing in single player, this is a nice touch, actually. You press fire for the CPU to serve. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah, good.
Because you can, if you want to take a break, if you need to get called away, it ain't going to carry on without you because you've got to press fire. That's I can get behind that kind of touch. That's a good idea. Controls are simple enough though. 4-way movement. You can't move in diagonals around the court. When the ball is near you, press fire to swing your racket, and it'll either do it forehand or backhand. You need to swing it earlier than you think in this game.
Yes.
Earlier than you think, because you've got to swing. And that swing is thing. This is a guy who likes, if this is Malcolm Evans, he likes playing around with 3D and stuff. This is a clever coder guy. I think he probably knows that it can't just be like hit it immediately. You've got to take time for the swing to hit it.
Yes.
So I couldn't really work out if there's a way to direct the ball. I couldn't find any instructions for this apart from not properly one. I did find some instructions, but they're not very good. They kind of say you can hit it in 6 directions, but I don't know. I think it's all about timing and position and where you are in relation to the ball and when you swing and make contact with it. And this kind of determines where it will go, which is, as is the case, as it should be. It takes some getting used to. So it's best to play it with the red ball at first because that's slower and you get a less skilled opponent. You get more time to kind of figure out where you need to be in relation to the ball and when to swing as well. So that's good. So you need to press fire, like I said, swing and hit the ball back because it takes some getting used to. Serving's fairly easy. Tap of the fire button. If you do that, it kind of hits it immediately. If you a longer hold, you can delay hitting it. You still need to let go. If you keep it held down, the ball bounces. You lose the serve. It follows squash rules. This fully. I couldn't seem to direct the serve very well. But as I said, the instructions mentioned that you have 6 ways to hit it. I just served though and got on with it. Don't know. And at first, when I started playing this, I couldn't return a thing. I got beaten 9-0 twice in a row. I just couldn't even hit the ball. I was like, this is not how I remember this. But then I managed to get the hang of when to swing and where to be and how to hit it. I started to get a few returns back in. And I started to do a few rallies. I wasn't winning. The timing and the pace of the game, on the red ball, started to come back to me. And then I won a set. And then I won a straight set victory of 3 sets. I got really good. Red ball, I could hammer him. I was like, yes, I played this quite a bit again. I was like, I remember how to play this now. Where to be, how to hit it, where to position myself. I went up a level, found it tougher, not impossible, and found myself thoroughly enjoying this again. I just did. The animation's perfunctory. The players run around. They're fine. It's just the 2 of them. They charge about. The sound effects, The in-court sound effects, nothing more than what you need, but you do get speech for this at the end of each point, which is quite nice. Ball, one, hand over or something, it says, whatever. And it says it at the end of every point, sort of thing. So you always get that. It's quite nice. The rules of squash are all here. From obstruction, so you can, playing a let if you get an obstruction, if you're running the way to stop them getting the ball, it detects that you've done that and plays a let. That's quite good. If they get hit with the ball, they do a kind of comedy like oof and fall to the floor, but still lose the point. So that's quite good as well. The difficulty levels, the challenge through those difficulty levels ramps up well. You get to that yellow ball, that's coming fast, and they're returning it fast. You've got to be absolutely foot on your game with that one. So I still really like this. I found this a very good 8-bit take on the sport. Ball moves smoothly and realistically. It bounces well. You can do, when you pull off a little drop shot or something like that, it's very satisfying picking up a shot as it bounces off the back of the court. You can do that as well. If it hits the back of the court, you can still get that little scoop return, which is great. Keeping the rally going when you thought it was lost. Is it a good simulation? I think for an 8-bit machine, I think this is a really good simulation of the game. I was glad to go back to it. Whether you'd like this now, if you didn't back then, well, that's open for debate. I don't know. But for me, this still plays a decent game of squash. Yep. I enjoyed it. Even if it's a bit bare bones in the options department, it could have maybe had something like a league or a tournament that wouldn't have gone amiss to sort of add a bit of longevity rather than just best of 5 and that's all you get. But what is here is a solid game, a solid simulation of squash, and it still works, and I still had fun with it, and I still like it. So this stands up. I think this is a great game. What about you?
Yeah, it really surprised me this. Easily a contender for one of the best, certainly one of the best 2-player squash games, because a very early standard set here with a bit of speech in there, which was nice. It's totally surprised me this, and really, really good ball physics. I mean, they really are exceptional.
Yeah.
We've seen so many games get that wrong. I thought this was pitched really right. I had loads of fun playing this because it's just a nice easy in, isn't it? You get through the options, you're in the game, and away you go. You press the button to serve, and then I managed to score some really fluky returns as well. It's a really good game. I really, really enjoyed it. It doesn't necessarily have all the looks, but what does it need? The idea of keeping this to this sort of the half of the screen, the left side, is a real stroke of genius because it keeps you focused there and it sort of keeps it all kind of contained, and it makes it feel, even though it's actually quite a small space, it still feels like it's an adequate space to play out the game because the ball moves around really nicely. You can get to the ball, and I really enjoyed my time with it. So considering its age and considering the games that have preceded this, and we played one, and even the other one that we played wasn't actually terrible.
Good. Yeah, it was good.
It was good, but I actually would give this one the edge over that. The size of the players, the movement around, the fact that you can just get dives to do some of them crazy shots, and you do some amazing returns, and when you get the dead ball and it just drops, you're like, yes! It's a really good little early classic game. This. I was really pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed my time with it, considering I'm not a big advocate of necessarily of squash as a game. I mean, I've played it and stuff, but this was a really good game. I'd have been really pleased with this back then. Because but this was this the era of great sports game on the C64? All these early ones, yeah, Activision Decathlons, your Summer Games 1 and 2, and World Games, and this and these, and Leaderboard. These early sports sim games were genuinely really good. They never really got that good again, did they? It's really strange. No. They kind of peaked early.
Yeah.
So strange.
Like
but
Hess Games and stuff like that.
Yeah, and add a few extra little details to this. Maybe if it had had an Epix spin, this would have been really, really... This almost feels like it could almost slot into one of the World Games or something like that. It's not far off that, with a little bit more spit and polish around the edges, but what there is very playable. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Go and play it. Go and give it a blast. Yeah, I think it will surprise you. The speech certainly surprised me. So
yeah, I think keeping that just to the half screen keeps the right ratio, so it makes it tall. It makes it tall and thin rather than trying to spread it across the whole screen.
Yeah, exactly. And even though that the players that you're playing are medium res, they don't look wider because they're in a thinner space. It's a very clever trick on the eye, and it really works.
Yeah. I'm glad you like it. Because, like I said, I used to play a lot of this back in the day, and I was like, oh, is this still going to be any good? And I was like, yeah, it really is. It really is a good game.
Good stuff.
And there you go. That's Jonah Barrington Squash. We still like it. Okay, for our next game, well, we've bent the rules a bit because we only had two games left that we hadn't covered. So obviously 2 games is too short for an episode, so we wanted to do some extra ones. So what we did is we had a look what came out in 1985 but wasn't covered in Zzap, but maybe could have been. maybe they could have looked at it, but they didn't. So we've chosen a couple of games for our next ones for that. It is what it is. Back in episode 0, or when we did those, we looked at 1982, 3 and 4. So these are kind of in that mold. Some games that came out before Zzap that we think are worth a look at. And Graham, well, the first one of those is over to you for the interesting title, Black Thunder. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's $7.95. This was reviewed in Your Commodore magazine, I think, and got 3 stars in that, whatever that means. Okay. A bit of a weird old thing, this, though. This was published by Quicksilver at the time. Developer was Wizard Development, otherwise known as Tony Crowther. Graphics also Tony Crowther. Musician Ben Daglish, of course. They often work together, Rat and Ben. Sound effects Tony Crowther. Box art David John Rowe, beg your pardon. The convoluted plot for this story, I don't know what you really call that. It's I'm not even sure I could make much sense of it, but I'll read out what's on the tape box.
Do it.
It said, the wizard has planned this moment for 100 years. At last, superhuman Crowther is trapped by his forces in the city of Wisening. No mercy will be shown as Crowther is relentlessly pursued by remote control androids in death-dealing machinery around the colossal freeway system on which the city stands. The wizard sees his long and tortuous plan reaching its inevitable climax at any second. Only superhuman skill at the wheel of his domed car with its impressive armory can enable Crowther to destroy his opponents and leave the city to the tyranny of the wizard. One day, quite soon, Crowther will return to vanquish the tyrant, but the first problem is to stay alive, which is interesting because it doesn't really tell you what you have to do. So now the idea of the game is actually to... doesn't make much sense. The idea of the game is to actually escape the city. That's the idea of this game. It's an escape game, essentially. That's it. So if you're wondering what all that meant, that's what it meant. Now, this is a bit of an odd thing, because it's, like I said, it predates Zzap a little. So we're going back in time a little bit, 1985, like you said.
Yeah, it was reviewed like in March 85 in CNVG and places like that.
Yeah, so this was an odd old thing. It's a race and chase game, but ultimately you're not in a race as such. You're in a race to get out of the city. That's the plan. And there's actually some nice details and some decent scrolling effects in this game for its time. The screen when you start the game, so you get the title screen, which is a bit horrible, but of its time. And the color scheme on this is weird. Purples and pinks, but it is what it is. But its screen is when you start the game, because you won't start the game, obviously, and you'll get some decent-ish Ben music in there, but the screen is split into 2 halves, actually. In the top half, you can see your armoured car from the side. The joystick moves the car forward or stops it, while the fire button fires your cannons and missiles. The bottom half of the screen is a top-down viewed map showing the many routes to get to the end and escape. Pushing the joystick up and down moves the car up and down the various junctions. So you kind of see at the bottom like a map, over sort of orthographic view of your car as a little car, zooming along a track, almost like a train track, really, actually, in a weird way. And then at the top, you kind of see the side view, scrolling view as you sort of race across. And the idea is to just race across and maneuver up and down and escape. Your way being constantly thwarted by tracking missiles, things that follow you, spaceships, and just stuff that's going to blow you up eventually. Okay? Very strange. So the aim, I guess, really is to just not die, which is a kind of classic Crowther thing, isn't it? Most of these early games involve just existing long enough to not be dead. And that's kind of his MO for the games, really. So you'll play this game, you'll start, you'll race along, things will come towards you, you'll try and shoot them with missiles, which you can do. There's a UI in the center of the screen for this, which is a bit of a higgledy-piggledy mess about things that are all over the shop. So you've got a score, your number of cars, I think your number of ammo, your high score, and then there's the sort of stage you're at, for a better description. And away you go. The race, you're off. Graphics, as I said, they're okay. They're a bit on the cluttered side, though, with some weird color choices. But classic, I'd say they have a classic Tony Crowther early unfinished quality to things. I always felt like his early games were kind of a bit unfinished. So it's like some sideboarder color bit glitches and things at one point where there's a giant raster line across and it sort of flickers a bit. And I don't know, it's sort of made to look like it's part of the game scenery because the background is purple, but it's clearly not. And it's just a bit, I don't know, unfinished. The upper section side view graphics work for what they are. Your vehicle's the kind of a Homer's car type thing, really. So it's not quite sure what that is, really. It looks like a bit of a mishmash between like a chitty chitty bang bang mixed with, I don't know what. I don't know what it's meant to be.
It's a train.
Is it a train? I don't think you're in a car.
Yeah,
it's like not a train.
It's supposed to be a train. That's why it's on tracks.
Oh, well, it doesn't look like a train track. It's a road you're on.
Yeah.
And it describes it in the instructions as describes it in instructions as the city roads. Anyway, it is what it is. Like I said, the middle is your UI. I guess what you'd say is other sprites are a medium res melange of things. Mostly missiles, rockets and ships and things that fly at you or follow you, and you'll see them following you as well. It all moves at quite the speed though, with decent scrolling on this and some quite nice scrolling effects as too, because there's like a effect where the close-up things go faster, so you get like quite a nice depth perception effect, which is quite unusual for the time. Mm-hmm. And quite nicely done. So they've obviously rendered some layer of sprites that goes across the foreground as expanded sprites. Then you've got backgrounds moving. That's quite a nice effect, actually, in its own way. Quite like that. Quite like that. Excuse me. The top-down map, though, it's a bit, I don't know. These games always have a problem for me, and that is I don't quite know where I should be looking. So you sort of, at the top, you're sort of meant to be blasting and shooting at things and keeping an eye out for things, but you're also, at the bottom, it's moving that fast, you've got to try and decide where you're going to go and which direction you're going to go on the track. And so your visuals are torn between the two, and before long, you're going to end up dead. I mean, there's no way around that. You're going to end up dead and blow up, and then you sort of start again. So I don't know. I found that as a game of its type, a little bit distracting in that way. I didn't know what to look at. The speed of the game is impressive, but it's also to its detriment because it's a very one-note game. You just move along, shoot stuff, and don't die until you do die. And then back to the beginning you go. That's kind of the game, really. It's not very lively, though, and the music's kind of a bit squeaky from Ben Daglish, but it's okay. In-game sounds are okay. There's some nice speech in there as well. It gives that really early arcade kind of vibe, the game over kind of thing. It's all right, though, what it is. It has that classic Tony Crowther play or die methodology, even this, which most of his early games did. This is a bit like Suicide Express and Loco in that respect, I thought. Comments on Lemon agreed with that.
Yeah.
Controlling things is a bit clatty, though, in this, and it looks a bit clatty as well. In fact, everything's kind of clatty. Everything feels a bit thrown in. And sort of, so it's thrown in you go, off you go. Okay, I'm dead. Oh, right, okay, I'll go again. And you go, things, it's just stuff happening. And it's just like that, you got an idea now. I tell you, I'm going to have a car racing, it's going to be, background's going to be moving, just throw stuff at it, and there's a map. What do you have to do? I don't know. Just drive. I think that's pretty much how this game came to be. Very in keeping with that early kind of design with very little else to offer, but in that time, 1985, would have been quite visually quite compelling on the C64 and quite revolutionary looking actually in its own way. So there's some nice things to look at, albeit they're a bit bitty. Sprites-wise, they're a weird combination of things, and I'm not quite sure of the colorization, but they are what they are. I just think the game lacks any real longevity because it's just not much to it. You just race along and don't die and avoid stuff or shoot stuff with the missiles. Maybe there's more to it as you get into it. I don't know. I didn't last much longer than that. I tire very quickly of the early Crowther games because the difficulty is off the chart, crazy. You don't last long. So I played it for as long as I could stand, doing the same thing with relative lack of control, more of careering down a thing rather than actually controlling anything. I suppose if you go with it, it's all right. I don't think it's going to have me coming back to it though. So, but it was a bit of an obscure thing. I'd never really even heard of it before. So it's quite interesting to see that. There are other things in there as well. You get extra points and you build up a point score for shooting the demo dumps and the helicopters and the tanks and things like that. I think if anything, it's like a moon. Was that Moon Crester when you're a buggy jumping over craters?
Was it Moon Patrol?
Moon Patrol. I think this probably started off as a Moon Patrol variant, I think, in Tony Crowther's game library, because it has a look of that. And then he thought, I'm not making it jump over things. Can't be asked with that. Let's just make it move up and down and do track stuff. I don't know. It's a Tony Crowther game of an early type. You maybe like it, but at 1985, probably the scrolling would be quite eye-catching, I'd have thought. And the look and feel is weird, but there's not a lot to the game itself. I don't think they're really hidden under the hood. What did you think?
Yeah. So interestingly, this actually, so you mentioned Suicide Express and Loco, the three, basically the same game 3 times that Tony Crowther made. This was basically a reskin of Suicide Express released for, which had been released for Gremlin, and he did this and reskinned this for Quicksilver. They're all based on a game called Super Locomotive, which was a 1982 Sega arcade game. If you look at that, you go, oh yes, that's what these are based on, because it's exactly the same. Your side-on view of the train, your top-down view of the thing.
I can see that.
And that's what these are that's where these have come from. I'd also say as well that, these kind of, you mentioned that kind of like, you need that bifocal look to look at these things. Sanction would be another one.
Yeah.
Which has the same kind of thing. We've seen a couple of these where you kind of look down and you look from the side. There's another one as well. But it's Black Thunder, it's quite an interesting game in and of itself. It's Suicide Express. I think these games are quite typical of Crowther stuff, especially in this area, its early era. They're technically very good for the time. the split screen and the separate scrolling areas move at a very fast pace, and there's some very smooth scrolling. It's all very, there's a couple of raster glitches every now and again, but in general, for what's going on screen, and like you said, the kind of foreground stuff and things like that, it's actually quite impressive. I thought the controls are quite nice. I like the fact of like when you get the helicopters, I think it is, that coming in towards the third level, second, third, fourth, fifth level, whatever it is, you have to hold the fire button down, holding that down longer for the height of the air missiles you fire upwards. So when you let go, so you can pick the height of them to sort of bomb the thingy, but you've also got to think in 3 dimensions, haven't you? You've got to be in line with them at the bottom and also have your missile at the right height. There's some skill in that. You can also blow yourself up if you collect too much ammo. So you've got to be firing all the time. It's very arcadey. It's very, very arcadey, this. But like you said, the very nature of the game means you miss most of the good stuff. The visuals zipping past because your attention invariably sits on the lower screen. And navigating that and sort of trying to stay out the way of the homing missiles and slowing down and speeding up and that. So you miss all the nice stuff at the top. But, this is technically pretty good. 3 years into the life of the machine, Loco was 2 years into it. People are pulling off some interesting stuff with the C64 and what it can do with its, it's at the time advanced hardware technicalities, built-in smooth scrolling, 8 hardware sprites, all that sort of stuff which the machine could do. And I think there's some good stuff. In terms of Tony Crowther, we've kind of followed him over the last few years and things like that. He gets better when he works with a game designer. So when he does games like Bomboozle, Fernandez Must Die, and he works with Dave Bishop, I think it was, and in some games like games like that, because he's technically proficient. But this is just like you said, it's everything all at once. There's it's just go from the moment, because it's an arcade game, and he's made an arcade game on the C64 3 times, and just reskinned them. But it just needed a guiding hand. This would have been better with a guiding hand, maybe, but it's based on already an arcade game, so he's just copied that. I do like this though as an arcade blast. I liked them at the time. I played Black Thunder, I played Suicide Express, I played Loco at the time. I had them on maybe a turbo tape or something, and I remember playing it back then. It was never played for very long because it's one of them. It's one of those games where you kind of have a couple of quick goes, and it's like my eyes hurt. And then you're kind of done with it. You have a bit of a blast. Some technically, the score being read out is quite nice with the speech there and stuff. Yeah. So it's not it's technically very good, but it's very much it's an arcade game on the machine, and with all the all the pros and cons that comes with. But it is it's technically very good, as Crowther stuff really is, and it's better than some of his other stuff. I like this more than Potty Pigeon. Yeah. Yeah, and things like that, and William Wobbler and stuff like that, which he does later. But there you go. That's Black Thunder. Interesting game, and sort of the final piece, the final of his train trilogy, shall we call them? But there you go. That's Black Thunder. Okay, our final game from around that time when Zzap came out, but strangely never appeared in the magazine, despite being just about every other magazine at the time, is Rocket Ball. Ball. This got reviewed in CNVG. You got 8 out of 10. Commodore Horizons got 10 out of 10. Commodore User gave it 4 out of 5. Home Computing Weekly gave it 3 out of 5. Your 64 gave it 3 out of 5. And Your Computer gave it 3 out of 5. So who knew there were so many home computer game magazines around in 1985? But not Zzap. And these reviews date from April through to June. So it does seem like it probably should have been in issues 1 or 2. I don't know why, though. Anyway, it cost $7.95 on tape. It was published by IJK Software. In 1984, they'd done a version of Joust, but with an E on the end. So Jousty. I don't think I've ever played that. And something called Crazy Car, which is Crazy Car, both spelt with a K. They were both made by Kim and Paul McCary. This isn't, though. This is by John S. Sinclair, who I think is part of the J in the IJK Software. It's the only game he did on the machine. The only game. Okay. Bit of a shame, that, I think. So the instructions have this to say about the game itself. This is Rocket Ball, a thrilling game of skill, expertise, and outstanding realism. The action takes place on the circular Rocket Ball track, where 2 roller-skated teams of 5 players battle it out in a no-holds-barred goal-scoring contest. Rules are virtually non-existent. The game is played in an anti-clockwise direction and lasts 10 minutes. In the event of a draw, 2 minutes extra time will be played repeatedly until one team is victorious. Rocket Ball presents the ultimate in 2-player participation games. While it's in its 1-player mode, it demands the highest possible skill and dexterity from its opponent. However, The less skilled players can learn to master the techniques by starting on the easier levels. Easier. Okay, so the game loads. We get an interesting title screen. Does a good job of keeping everything in world. So on the left and right of the screen, like filling most of it up, we've got a close-up of 2 players, each of them with a helmet on, like they're racquetball players. In the background, we can see the track. There's some crowd looking over the barrier behind it, and the name of the game. You can choose to play here, 1 or 2 players, by pressing F5. This changes the numbers on the player on the right of the screen. These go up from 11 to 22, 33, 44, 55, and 66. These are the difficulty levels. Finally, it then changes to P2 for a 2-player game. Okay. You press F1 and F3. This changes the team you play for either player. So pressing F1 changes 1 player, and you can play as either Madrid, Houston, Moscow, and Tokyo. And you can F3 does the same. So you can play as 2 teams against each other. F7 allows you to change the colour of the border for some reason. Which is an odd option, but we can't. I think we've seen that in another game, haven't we? Where back then there was like these weird little options sometimes to change stuff in games back in the mid-80s.
Pool or snooker game was one of them where you could change the colour of the table to red if you wanted to or something. It's
very strange, isn't it? These kind of little options they used to put in back then. Anyway, once you've got the options and the teams you want, and you've listened to the rather simple tune playing, you press fire and the game starts. Okay, here we see a delay of the game. So we see the track from within the circle of the track looking outwards. So imagine you're in the middle of the track. It's on a loop and you're looking out towards it. So it's presented at an angle in front of you. It goes up, but it doesn't really work with how it scrolls, but you get the impression. So basically it's down at an angle coming from, high at the outside, low at the bottom, low on the inside of the track. The playable part of the track takes up about half the screen. There's a barrier at the top above the track bit, and there's a crowd above this watching. At the bottom is a part that is marked red. This is out of bounds for the ball and the players. You can't move into this area. We get a little fanfare, and our 2 teams of 5 players come skating past. Now, I think there's some nice tech here for 1985. There's clearly more than 8 sprites on screen. They're big. There's 5 of them moving around, and it's smooth, and there's nice smooth scrolling and everything. There's no UI as well, which I quite like as such, because it's all score and timer. They're built into the barrier above the track all the way around, so you constantly know how much of the 10 minutes is left and what score it is, but it's just always scrolling past within this, always just keeping it nice and diegetic. I like it. There's the sound of a klaxon once 2 teams have sort of wandered past, and the ball is fired onto the track. And basically what we have here is, I can't believe it's not Rollerball, essentially.
It's basically Rollerball.
So it's the 1975 film starring James Caan. It's Rollerball, the game.
It is.
So around to the edge of the track, there are 2 holes. So as you go round, you'll see them, 1 for each team. So a blue and a yellow one, or a purple and a yellow one, or whatever. The point of the game is to pick the ball up and throw the ball in the hole to score points. And it made me think, it's Rollerball, the genus of the sci-fi throw the ball in the hole trope.
Could be.
We've talked about that. We've talked about that. We've talked about that in loads of sci-fi shows. You always usually have a game where the object is to throw a ball in a hole.
Yeah, it's got to be on it, ball in hole, yeah.
Yeah, so I wonder if Rollerball is the start point for them. So the screen scrolls to keep the ball in the center. And at first when it fired, it will go past the players. But as it slows, your players will skate up to it, or the ball will sort of come past you, and you need to try and pick it up. You'll control one of your players, and you try to pick it up and keep it until you can fling it in the hole as you're skating past. You're always skating right to left, anti-clockwise. You go, the ball is always going. That's the way this game goes, constantly going right to left. You can control one of your team. Usually the closest to the ball. It swaps automatically depending on what's going on. You can move them up, down, forward, and back across the thing. You can move them in diagonals with the joystick and normal movements. Holding left, speeds you up to skate faster. Holding right slows you down. You can actually slow to a complete stop and then walk up and down the track as well if you want to do that. The fire button press there, you can do a number of other moves. If you do down and fire, this crouches, and you need to do this to pick up the ball. Just trying to skate into the ball, no, you don't do that. You've got to crouch to pick it up. And you've got to do that from coming up behind the ball as well. Up and fire does a jump. Right and fire does a punch to your right, so up screen, because you remember you're seeing this from within the circle. And left and fire does a punch to your left, sort of down screen. So you can punch opponents to above you or below you and knock them over. If you have the ball, then right and fire will fling the ball up towards the barrier and hopefully the opposing team's goal. But the game itself is very kinetic and not without its strategy. Players will barge into each other, fall over all the time. They're all charging about and just going over all the time. If they have the ball, you knock into someone, it goes flying out their hands, and you've got to try and pick up the ball. You need to pick it up coming from behind. If the ball comes at you from behind you, it knocks you over. Remember, you're on roller skates. This is a big iron ball. It's going to knock you over. So you need to do that. You punch opposing players, as I said, with your punches, knock them over that way. You can even fling the ball into them to knock them down. If you're under them and you fling it, you can even fling it to the left as well and fling it down the track if they're next to. But it flings that will then go into the out of bounds area. The ball will get flung back onto the pitch or the track. Sorry. If you crouch and skate into someone, this will knock players down who are jumping or normally stood up skating, but you will actually stay on your skates. It won't knock you over. If you're both skating and you hit into someone, you both go over. If you crouch, you can go into anybody like that. If you jump, this will take down players who are skating normally, allow you to keep going. But obviously, if they crouch, you'll be knocked over. So a little bit of strategy there as to how you approach stuff. You don't just want to career into people. And it gets quite frenetic. Lots of players on screen at once, and no slowdown, and no glitching, no flickering, just lots of players charging around trying to get the ball. Should the ball lose momentum, and roll into the red area at the bottom, then it will be fired once again. You get a klaxon, it'll be fired, it'll scroll around to where the firing is, and it will be fired back out from the starting cannon again to restart play. And so, it's a 10-minute game where you've got to get hold of the ball and fling it in the opponent's hole. It's a tough game, this, and getting used to the rhythms of when to try and get the ball, how to take out the opponents and the like, takes some getting used to. But it does work, and technically it all works pretty flawlessly. The sprites are big, pretty well animated as they skate around, throw punches and throw the ball and go tumbling over each other. There are plenty of them on the screen, with each player being at least 2 sprites high. And I counted at times 8 or so players on screen at some point. There's no flickering, the scrolling is smooth, and the game soon becomes a very tense battle of trying to get the ball and get it into the opponent's hole. You also have to account for your speed when throwing the ball as well, because it will realistically move forward, front of you. If you let go right at the same level as where the goal is and you're moving forward at pace, it will miss. So you've got to angle it in. Quite often you'll miss, you'll bounce off and back into play, and you've got to go pick it up again and knock players over and all that kind of things going on all the time. So there's some actually really great depth to this. And I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this back in the day. I can't remember me Gary used to play this. I think we might have done. It seems like one of them games we might have played at the time, back in the mid to sort of late 80s after it came out. The top speed of the player who has the ball is lessened as well. So if you pick it up, you go slower so that your players can catch up with them. But the AI of the opposing team is not bad. The opposing team's players will form barriers around the player with the ball to try and stop you getting to them, to protect them. It's just like you used to see in the film Rollerball. It's literally Rollerball the game. And I think this still stands up quite well today. I've quite enjoyed myself with this. Even the easiest difficulty level, though, will give you a challenge. But there are things I think, could have made this a bit easier. A lot of the time, there's just a ball on the screen, and you're wondering where your player is. Am I in front of the ball? Am I behind the ball? Am I skating up to it? Do I need to slow down? It's quite tricky in that respect. And I think the one thing maybe it's missing is some kind of radar or an indication of where your player is when off screen. Because a lot of the time, you just, like I said, you're just left wondering if your player is ahead or behind the play and not sure whether to slow it down, speed up. A radar would have solved this. But just to sort of either something, a sort of indication of the ring in the bottom left or something that showed where the players, where your players were around the actual ring itself. But it's a minor grumble, really. In what is another, I think, a great example of the machine producing a really impressive futuristic sports game way before the likes of Speedball 1 and 2 turned up. This is fun. It's fun. It's hard. It's weird, but you get used to it after a while. The advertising balls on the way are interesting. The crowd reacts when you score. I think it's still a great game to go back and play. I recommend you do it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. 1985 really was a great year for sports games on the system. There's loads of good ones that came out. And I think this would have scored quite well in Zzap. I think they would have quite liked this. It can feel tricky, but in 2-player, I remember having some really great games of this. But in single player, once you get back to playing it was like when we played Jonah Barrington's. Once you get back used to how it wants you to play, I was starting to hold my own against the computer and actually won a couple of games. So that was at the lowest difficulty level, but it is possible. I like this. I liked it a lot. What did you think?
I thought it was pretty good. It sometimes felt like you was watching a ball fly around with people just slightly off screen or just nearly off screen for some significant chunks. But there's good fun to be had in it. I found it weird that in the future the entire crowd had been shaved bald, but you know what? I can go with that. But it was quite an interesting little game, quirky little thing, but put together quite well. I just felt that I think it just needed perhaps a little bit more introduction for the player, a little bit more affordance at the start, just to get you into how to do the basics. Just a little bit of this is how you do this is how you do that in that initial sequence, just something like that. But in spite of that, I never played it 2 players, so I can imagine it's probably quite good fun like that. But it's interesting take on a game to just have it all just as like a race that is like continuous race going in a loop. But you don't need to see that loop. And the modern games like this would have had some kind of overhead map view and some dots chasing other dots and things like that. You can imagine how it would have looked. But because it doesn't have that, it actually focuses you on the gameplay, which is actually pretty good and reasonably strategic when you get into it. But sometimes it feels like the controls of the players are not where they should be at the time you need them to be, which means that sometimes you're just then playing spot the ball. And that is a frustration point. So the immediacy of what's happening is sometimes means that I've got a screen grab, for example, where the ball's in the middle and there's just one guy slightly off to the left and nothing else on the screen because that's what was happening. Because the ball does move at quite a pace and and there are players on the screen moving around, of course. But it can sometimes feel like, where's my player? Who am I controlling? And in a game like this, that speed needs to be Twitch speed, and it's just lacking that. But of course, it's produced when it was produced. You're talking 1985 for this. So I'd have to admit, as much as it's a bit rough around the edges here and there, there's actually some really nice game ideas, albeit that it's just rollerball. And clearly, they couldn't get the license for rollerball either, because even the teams are the same as they are in the film Rollerball.
Yeah, and if you look at the cover as well, it's James Caan.
Yeah, but you know what? So this predates, IP infringement to some degree. They just, they did what they could. But it is quite a good version of that, all said and done, and quite playable for it, and therefore the better for it as well. So I quite enjoyed what I played in its own quirky weirdness. But it did just have that kind of odd times where it was kind of, I'm looking at a ball and nothing else is on the screen yet. What's happening kind of thing. Every now and again that would happen, but you can bypass that and get along with a decent game. And there's actually quite a frantic paced game in here when you get to the frantic parts. So yeah, I quite enjoyed it.
Cool. Yeah, there you go. Rocket Ball. Decent little game that is. Always had a bit of a soft spot for it. I'm glad to see going back it was still enjoyable. And there you go. That's it. That's our 2 games that we needed to cover from Zzap, plus our 2 little bonus games. So, what did we look at? So we've looked at Herbert's Dummy Run, which was it's
one of a sequence, not the best one in the series of the whatever they're called games.
Pajama Armour games out there, or what they're called. Well, everyone's a Wally games. Wally.
Yeah, the Wally series. Yeah. Wally Week, whatever it is.
Yeah, we looked at Jonah Barrington Squash, which we thought was pretty good.
Yeah, good game.
It's a good game. We looked at not Suicide Express.
Black Thunder. Same sort of idea, though.
Yeah, and Loco and all that sort of thing. But so we looked at that. That was technically pretty good, but kind of crazy and very arcadey. Very also
arcadey. A version of another game, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony Crowther just releasing the same game again.
Yeah.
And finally, Rocket Ball, which is, like I said, can't believe it's not rollerball, but still pretty good. So, that's it. We hope you've enjoyed this trip down memory lane. It's quite good, always good fun to go back to these sort of earlier games and find these sometimes hidden gems and sort of play them. And it's quite good to enjoy them. I've quite enjoyed it. I keep saying enjoy. Stop saying enjoy. Find another word. I've liked my time. I've had a fun time going back and playing these. Next week, we we get into 1992.
We do. We begin. Yep.
We begin it. The final stretch, the final countdown. We get going over the 1992 with for the last 11 months of Zzap's life. And we get to look at games such as Super Space Invaders.
Yep. Cisco Heat.
Double Dragon 3, and Stratego.
Hey.
Our first 4 games to look at. We'll see what they're like next week. I don't think I've got much else to add here, Graham. Have you got anything you want to say?
No. That's good. Look forward to next week and what the 1992 delights befall us. Yeah.
We'll see. We don't know. We'll see.
It's still good. It's
still good. Yeah. So, there you go. As ever, I've been Adrian Mills.
And I've been Graham Raddins.
You certainly have. You've been no one else. You never could be. And you've been listening to Zap to the Past Goes Back to the Past and plays a mixture of games. Who knows?
Games from an alternative universe past, yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zap to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zap to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zaptothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zaptothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zap to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zap to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Raddings, and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zap to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.